Welcome. Today we would understand logic, which has been a new addition to your paper 1 syllabus and has been a very important topic for your upcoming examinations for NET paper 1. Now let's talk about the basics of logic that we have already done through our previous lectures. We have understood what is logic. It's simply said understanding of the knowledge, value, existence. So this philosophy could be explained under 3 branches. It is the axiology, ontology and epistemology. Axiology simply says the study of values. It can be divided into aesthetic and ethics. So aesthetic talks about the values relating to art. However, ethics talks about the values relating to your moral behavior. Ontology, on the other hand, which is also known as metaphysics, tries to explain what is really a real fact. So you talk about real existence. Epistemology talks about study of knowledge. And this is a kind of basic framework that we have already talked about in our previous lectures. When it comes to Colebrooke talked about the Nyayas, or those who followed the Nyayas, called as Nyayikas, who used reasoning as an evidence for understanding the category. So understanding the evidence, having a proper reasoning about something, and giving a kind of syllogism which was laid down as a 5-membered syllogism was some of the unique characteristics given by Colebrooke. Similarly, during this time, there was a big question whether Indian logic has been derived from Greek logic or both of those stand apart. The idea was this Greek logic, which is also known as Aristotelian logic, and the Indian logic, which mainly believed or was based on the concept of Vedas, both of those stood apart or grew independently and parallel to each other. The next important thing is the concept of Astik and Nastik. To a layman, if you ask what is Astik, what is Nastik, he would say a person who believes in God or is a theist is an Astik, or who does not believe in God or is an atheist is a Nastik. But when we talk in terms of logic, when we talk in terms of darshan, philosophy, we say a person who believes in the authority of Veda is a Astik, and who does not believe in the authority of Veda is Nastik. Later on, there was one more category that was added to it, and that was life after death. Now, if we consider just the concept of Vedas, we would say 3 primary schools, Jainism, Buddhism and Charavak, fall under the concept of Nastik. However, if we include the concept of life after death along with the concept of Vedas, we say only Charavaks are part of it. Jainism and Buddhism would fall in the category of Astik then. Now, what under logic or philosophy we predominantly talk about is with the terms of Veda. So if we talk about in terms of Veda, we say those who believe in Vedas are Astik, those who do not are Nastik. As simple as that. If we talk about Samkhya or Mimamsa, both of those do not believe in God. So they are atheist or Nastik for that purpose. But they strongly believe in the authority of Vedas, so they are Astik. And therefore, there is a different category that we talk about for Samkhya and Mimamsa. Now, under the logic, we have the Astik, which could be classified with Vedas and Vedants. So we would be focusing on the major sections of Astik as per the Indian logic that is based on the authority of Veda. The first is Samkhya. This was given by Kapila. This is one of the oldest philosophical systems that exist, and the most important text that survives for the Samkhya is the Samkhya Karika. This follows a dualist principle. Now this dualist principle is a little different. When we talk about dualism, we say usually is a dualism of mind and body. But in case of Samkhya philosophy, it's not mind and body. What is it? It is self and matter. So it's a dualism between self and between the matter. This dualism could be explained as Purusha and Prakriti. Purush is the self or the soul of an individual. Prakriti is the matter or the creative existence, which could be given by three dispositions or three gunas that we say. Those are Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. Sattva is the steadiness, Rajas is the level of activity and Tamas is the level of dullness. So those three aspects or three propositions are laid down under Prakriti. So Samkhya, we talk about dualism, focusing on the Purush and the Prakriti. That's very, very important. The next important aspect is Yoga, which is predominantly laid down under Bhagwad Gita, and we talk about four yoga: the Karma Yoga, Raj Yoga, Jan Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. So those are the four yogas that we focus on. The idea of yoga is to develop a method for union with the Supreme or the most powerful, we can say. This is a way through which we can work forward for self-realization, realizing oneself. However, Samkhya is a way of concentration, is a way of meditation. So there is a difference between Samkhya and Yoga. Yoga at a much broader level incorporates the personal God or the Ishwar, considering that to be an ideal onto which you would meditate. So it gives you a more enlightenment. A further enlightened form of yoga could be called as samadhi or nirvana, or what we say as moksha, and that is when the Atma reaches the infinite Brahma that we say. So Atma merging with the Brahma is what is the moksha or nirvana or samadhi. Patanjali wrote one of the very influential texts that was based on the ideas of Raj Yoga, and this was known as Yoga Sutra, which has been a very popular write-up, we could say. The next concept is the Nyaya, which was given by Akshapada Gautam. Now, Akshapada Gautam mainly talked about Nyaya based on the Nyaya Sutra, and Nyaya is believed on two things. One was logic, the other was knowledge. According to Nyaya, there are four sources of knowledge. Those are perception, inference, comparison and testimony. So these four sources of knowledge are very, very important, and according to Nyaya, the world is real. The philosophy does not have a kind of monist view, we could say. So very, very important aspect laid down under Nyaya, given by Akshapada Gautam, and this talked about four knowledge or four praman. Those are, I repeat again, perception, inference, comparison and testimony. So here there could be a direct question: which of the following is not a source of knowledge as per the Nyaya? The next is Vaisesika. So Vaisesika talked about only two things. Those were perception and inference. He left out comparison, he left out testimony. So according to him, there were only two propositions that were to be taken into account. This was laid down by Kanada, and it is also based on the concept of atomic pluralism, considering all objects in the universe could be reduced to certain atoms with Brahma, which would ultimately be the fundamental force for consciousness. And that's the most important thing that was part of the Vaisesika system. The next was Purva Mimamsa, which strongly believed in the authorities of Veda. So unquestionable faith on Vedas, performing of yagna, sacrifices, power of mantra, chanting of the mantra, more emphasis of dharma, which were the performances of Vedic rituals, was all part of Purva Mimamsa, a very strong belief in the concepts of Veda or the authority of Veda. The next was Vedanta or Uttara Mimamsa. Uttara Mimamsa or Vedanta believed that the world is not real, it's all Maya, or what we call as Maya. Basically unreal aspect, that's Maya. The next is Vedanta believed in a monist philosophy. Monist philosophy considered only one thing, and that was Brahma. The roots were very strong in the Samkhya philosophy, entitled with a lot of cryptic and poetic style of writing, but there was a difference between the two. Here you had a monist view, but there was a dualistic view that was there. So a very strong difference in the philosophical perspective. Now under this you had the various aspects that came in. For example, the Advait concept, which was laid by Adi Shankaracharya, talked about Vedanta as the soul and Brahma. Similarly, you had the Vashishta Dvait that talked about Yamuna, Ramanujan as some of the major scholars. You had the Dvait philosophy, you had the Shuddha Dvait philosophy. So there were various propositions of Vedanta which were laid down, which we would understand in detail in the further lectures ahead. When it comes to Indian contribution, three of the contributions are very important. The first is the contribution laid by Chanakya with his book Arthashastra, that talked about the political philosophy, the statecraft and the economic policy. The next was Mahatma Gandhi's effort, which talked about Ahimsa and Satyagraha. So Ahimsa and Satyagraha, both of those being influenced highly by the writings of Bhagwad Gita, writings of Tolstoy, Thore, Ruskin, some of his famous ideals we could say. And then you had Vivekanand, who believed in the Advait thinking, and he also brought out socio-economic reforms in light of those. So this was again a basic aspect of the clarifications of Nastik and Astik and the components under Astik and Nastik. We would be continuing our lectures on philosophy, very important for your upcoming examination. So focus carefully. If you have any doubts, leave those as comments, as questions, and definitely the updated material is already up. You have the links below. You can refer those anytime. Have a wonderful day ahead.